Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon and I am not here with Geeky Sparkles, but we're going to give you another daily dose of dismal Disney. It feels wrong to do this video without her. A friend sent this link to her and she sent it to me, so I thought I would cover it. It's Sunday night and she's actually out watching a movie with our daughter, so she's having some quality mother-daughter time. We're going to talk about Disney's stock and more chatter about how Disney might get split up. Now, we did a video on this before, and there are some people saying that the best course of action for Disney at this point would be to split its profitable part off from its unprofitable part. And I wish people could do that. Like, yeah, I just want the good parts of myself, not the bad parts of myself. That's what a lot of different sites have been talking about, that Disney could effectively bundle up all of its unprofitable TV divisions and other IP that really isn't worth that much. It's kind of dead weight to them right now, and spin that off into its own company if they can't get somebody to just buy the stuff outright, right? And that's how they kind of get rid of it. And look, we saw Warner do this too. Warner, was spun off from AT&T. AT&T didn't want the dead weight of Warner Brothers, so they spun it off into its own company with Discovery. And it's just kind of off on its own now. It's got its own stock, whatever. People were speculating that Disney could split itself in two. You could have Disney A and Disney B, basically. And Disney B is how they get out of paying taxes, I guess. So Disney B is where they dump all the crap, so it makes Disney A look so much better. And this is coming up again. In fact, it came up today during a Squawk Box talk on CNBC, and an analyst said that he thinks that is Disney's best way forward. So things are pretty bad. When you're talking about breaking up Disney, things are pretty bad. So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to piratesandprincesses.net for more objective Disney news. This is actually coming from WDW News Today, also a pretty objective Disney news site. I know they've gotten themselves in trouble with Disney because they've been critical of the company. You're not allowed to be critical of the company at all in any capacity. But before we dive into the video, I want to give you a reminder. We only have, 3 days? 3 days left on our second chance, last chance campaign for Crimson Wren Volume 1. And previously on Clownfish TV, Crimson Wren is in stock. We're fulfilling our Indiegogo and Kickstarter campaign currently, and previously on Clownfish TV is at the printer, and we expect it in hopefully next month, hopefully by the end of next month. We'll see. We had to source a different printer because of some of the problems we had with Crimson Wren, getting that one done. But if you haven't backed these books yet and you would like to back these books, you can still do that directly through our website. In fact, this might be what we do going forward because we've had kind of spotty experience with crowdfunding sites. But if you go out to shopclownfish.com, that's shopclownfish.com, the second chance campaign is going to fulfill in October. We're going to make sure we get everybody else's books out first, the people that backed on the crowdfunding sites, and then we'll ship these books out to you. But they're definitely on their way, and we try to keep the prices at retail. We're not going to charge you $100 for a $30 book. It's not going to happen. Not here, anyway. So anyway, this is coming from WDW News Today. Analyst addresses falling Disney stock, suggests restructuring the company and setting up licensing in perpetuity for the Disney parks. So basically, he's saying they should break the parks off and then Disney can license its IP to whoever buys the theme parks. Now, that was one thing that came up when we talked about it. If Disney does split, or if Disney sells to Apple, Apple does not want theme parks. As far as I know, Apple would want the Disney IP. They would want the catalog. They would want the animated movies. They would want Marvel. They would want Star Wars. But I don't think they would want cruise ships. I don't think they would want a theme park necessarily. They wouldn't want to be in that business. It could be that Disney B, if they do this, they split Disney up, it could be that Disney B is like just theme parks and cruise ships, and it's like a totally different company, or they could just sell them off to somebody else. Maybe Busch Gardens, Six Flags. Oh my God, Six Flags over Mickey. They could do that. Six Flags over Mickey could take over the theme parks. On CNBC's Squawk Box, Rosenblatt Securities senior analyst Barton Crockett, that sounds like an analyst, Barton Crockett appeared to discuss Disney's falling stock prices. Their stock is at like, what, a 10-year low, 9-year low, something like that, and suggested an option for the Walt Disney Company. They could consider this option to turn things around. On Squawk Box, Crockett was asked what Disney could do in order to improve its stock price, which hit a 3-year low yesterday, closing at $82.83. At other points in the past week, it has reached decade lows. Holy hell. Crockett responded with two possible options. Look, I think one thing or the other is going to happen with Disney. They're either going to find some kind of solid footing underneath the business that's going to support the stock, or the pressure is going to build on this company to restructure and break up. So let that sink in. Disney could break up to save its ass. That might be what happens. I think in the latter scenario, you've got certainly an opportunity for value to be created from these levels, and I don't think the management team wants that. I think they believe they can turn the business around so it doesn't get to that point. He went on to explain the situation. In my mind, the right structure is a breakup. The right structure is a theme park anchored equity. The TV networks moved off into a structure where perhaps private equity that traffics in challenged assets, cash flow challenged assets. That's what Disney is right now, guys. A cash flow challenged asset at low multiples would be interested in a content library that's exceptionally valuable, and that could be of great use to a number of tech platforms. Apple. I'm adding that part in. Co-anchor of Squawk Box, Andrew Ross Sorkin, immediately brought up the difficult question with making the theme park separate from Disney's content library. How can you make a Disney park without Mickey Mouse and other familiar IP? Crockett has a suggestion for this as well. I'm not saying that you lose Mickey and Disney parks at all. I'm saying, and I think it's really not that complicated, to set up the licensing deals in perpetuity as part of a separation. So basically, whoever would take over the theme parks, and they kind of do this overseas. Disney doesn't fully own all the overseas theme parks. I think they took over, I'm trying to remember, I think they took over complete control of Disneyland Paris because it was very dirty. But I know a lot of the Asian parks, they do not own them fully. In fact, the most immaculate park is Disney Sea, Tokyo Disney, and it's owned by another company. I don't even think Disney, I think they just license the IP out to that company and they work with them, but I don't think Disney actually has an ownership stake in that. I could be wrong, but I know some of them it's like a 50-50. So yeah, they could technically work that out. Crockett suggested the first separation should be of Disney and its TV networks, which are declining assets that the company has acknowledged, and that the second separation should be between Disney and its content library. Wow, that's literally what they have going for them is their content library. I do think that they do not want to lose their content, but I think they'll lose the right to keep that if the business doesn't turn around and they don't take the necessary steps. I do think over time that content of this quality, of this caliber, arguable, at least up until the last decade or so. It was pretty good. The pressure is going to build for those to be married to tech platforms. Does that take the form of a full separation? Potentially, and I think that's a process that from here creates value for shareholders. While Disney has no intention of restructuring, is certainly an interesting prospect. They're not the only one to talk about, though. They're not the only ones to talk about. Cartoon Brew put an article out there 2 weeks ago talking about Disney splitting up. There's been a lot of talk about Disney splitting up and basically cutting off the dead skin, dead weight of these underperforming business divisions. And a lot of it is the TV. But it's kind of crazy to imagine Disney breaking up and, licensing the content out to somebody else who runs the theme parks. Now, would that be better or worse? I don't know. Disney has absolutely let things slide in the theme parks over the last couple of years. They're not putting as much into the parks as they used to. It used to be that the parks were their crown jewels. The parks were always the reliable source of income. And it looks like they basically dropped the parks to chase after streaming, and that's not very profitable for them. And it's really obvious. Anyone who has gone to the parks pre-pandemic and post-pandemic especially, it's very, very noticeable that Disney just doesn't care like they used to. They really don't. And the attractions that they're putting out there, yeah, some of them are pretty good. It's taking them years to get them done. Some of the stuff is being done on the cheap, and I think some of it's because they had a couple of huge misfires with Galaxy's Edge. They way overspent on Galaxy's Edge, and they build it based on the sequel trilogy, which was an incredibly stupid decision. I mean, that was just the dumbest decision they could have made. Like, if you based it on the original Star Wars trilogy, the classic Star Wars trilogy, Darth Vader and C-3PO and Luke Skywalker, it was money in the bank. If you made it as good as the Wizarding World, but with the classic characters, it would have been money in the bank. But it is a shell of what it was supposed to be. And we see how they failed massively with the Star Cruiser. That was another misfire that any Star Wars fan, any Disney fan could have told them if they were being honest and they weren't just lying to get, a free night stay at this hotel. They could have told them, this isn't Star Wars. This is overpriced. This isn't going to fly. And they didn't listen. Everybody was. The entire internet was telling them it was a bad idea. It's a bad idea. $5,000, $6,000 for 2 nights in this LARPing hotel that doesn't even look like Star Wars. It looks like Star Trek. And there aren't like really recognizable characters from the original trilogy. It's all sequel trilogy. That was a stupid thing to do, but they did it. And then they had to take the write down because they had to close the thing after a year. I didn't even think it was a year. Did it make it a year? I didn't even think it made it a year. So yeah, they're not really firing on all cylinders right now. And it might be that this is how they save their ass. This is how Disney saves itself from the fire. They cut off a bunch of, companies and spin them off into something else and then just focus on, like Bob Iger says, core assets. Now that's going to make Disney look very different, I think. I don't know if the general public is going to notice so much. If the theme parks don't change that much, they might be cleaner if they have somebody in there whose main goal is to make the best theme park experience possible because that is their bread and butter. They might be cleaner or they might get worse. I don't know, but they're definitely in for the fight of their lives with Universal and Comcast because they're bringing it. They're building a whole new park. They're putting it together in record time. Disney used to be able to put together an entire park, in a couple of years, and they can't do that. They can't get a roller coaster done in 5 years. I mean, that's how far Disney has slipped. Now, I don't know if it's, they're pacing themselves so they don't have to pay for it all at once, or they're having a hard time getting contractors to work for them. I've heard that before too, or what the issue is, but Disney can't get anything done in a decent amount of time these days in the theme parks. And it just tells me that the theme parks aren't their top priority. They're basically a cash cow they can milk to get money to dump into streaming and to dump into shitty Marvel and shitty Star Wars movies, and that's what they're looking at. So yeah, I mean, in some way, I don't think it would be a bad thing. It wouldn't be a bad thing to have somebody whose business it was to make the best theme park experience possible, to come in and take over the Disney parks. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's pretty interesting that this keeps coming up again and again and again, and we might see a very different Disney in a couple of years. I don't know. I think it depends on how this next earnings call goes. I think it's going to be a disaster, guys. I'm just telling you. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. Again, go out to shopclownfish.com if you haven't checked that out yet. Please support us if you can. If you want to, no pressure. We'll talk to you later. Help support the channel. Go to thereef.support and get early access to podcasts, videos, and other content. That's thereef.support.